Brian McTaggart of MLB.com spoke with Astros owner Jim Crane in a piece that you can read online. We're trying to figure out what the hell is happening with Justin Verlander. This was Crane last week on Verlander's potential future with the Astros.
You know, Justin really had a great year. We have a good relationship with him, both Dusty and I and James. I think we have about 4 o'clock tomorrow, a free time to talk to him. We've been talking to him, and we're working on it. We're going to do our best to try to keep him.
That was last week. This shouldn't come as a surprise when you read this from Crane in that piece by Brian McTaggart. Crane said Verlander is seeking a deal similar to Max Scherzer, which we all expected months ago, who signed a 3-year, $130 million contract with the Mets just last year. Crane said he hopes the absence of a state income tax in Texas will give the Astros an edge. Said Crane, I know him well, so we've been pretty candid. He's looking at the comp, which I think there's only 1 or 2. JV's probably got a few years left, and he wants to make the most of it. I think he's going to test the market on that. Rather non-committal, right? Much like when he was talking about James Click last week, Jim Crane's not really tipping his hand. My question to you on the most interactive sports talk show in Houston, is Verlander worth that? A year ago, I would have said yes, even with the guy coming off of Tommy John surgery, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But that was mainly because I wasn't quite as sold on the rest of the Astros pitching staff as maybe some of you guys were. And to be honest, I can understand why you were, where I wasn't, seeing as I was in Seattle the 2 years before. But on the outside looking in, I think most people would say that bringing Verlander back, even if he did have some postseason struggles against Seattle and against the Phillies, at least in the first game that he pitched, you would maybe think to yourself, yeah, okay, I think the Astros will be okay. I think the Astros will be okay too. And this is what I wonder about, especially considering we read that article on the air yesterday that Jeff Passan wrote about the Astros and what's going on in their front office. I wonder if Jim Crane would be willing to walk away from his buddy, Justin Verlander, when you have 2 guys who are, like Verlander, will be eventually, Hall of Famers in Jeff Bagwell and Reggie Jackson, who are for some reason 2 of the strongest voices around Jim Crane. I wonder if those guys would actually say, yeah, move on. In fact, I doubt it. So I really wonder how this one's going to play out. I think you can walk away and feel pretty good about yourself considering the depth of pitching. And while the Astros were phenomenally lucky on the injury front last year, I do think that you're going to be okay given that you have Framber Valdez, who was a borderline Cy Young finalist. You have Christian Javier. You have, amongst others, Lance McCullers when he's on his A game. That's, hit or miss. Luis Garcia, Jose Urquidy, Hunter Brown. You have a lot of options for next season in your rotation. And don't you feel pretty damn confident in the AL West? Yeah, the Mariners might be better, but you think that Angels, the A's, or the Rangers are turning things around? You do play less games against the AL West based off of the schedule I looked ahead at, because I think next year is the first year where every single team will play all 29 other teams. So maybe you won't be able to beat up on the division the way that you have in years past, but I would feel pretty good about walking away from Justin Verlander. But that is a question I leave to you at 713-780-3776, 713-780-ESPN. We are 134 days till the start of the Astros season. We'll have an Astros countdown later on at 11 o'clock with another award that the Astros may or may not have gotten somewhat robbed on. But, guys, the Astros still don't have a general manager. It's time for the TV show / radio show that everyone's talking about.
The Astros don't have a general manager. What is happening? What is going on?
They're World Series champions. Who gives a baseball, pal?
It's Astros don't have a general manager watch 2022.
So McTaggart, who spoke with Jim Crane, was able to get this out of him as far as what's next at general manager. We've got some names to replace Click, said Crane at the owners' meeting in New York. I'm going to take my time on it this time. Last time, I was in a little crunch. I didn't have a GM. I didn't have a manager. Continuing to say, we're not on red alert like I was then. So I moved pretty quick. We've got a pretty solid baseball ops team that's been around. Farkas and Charles Cook have been with the team for a while. We're going to interview a bunch of people and see where we land with that. I don't expect anything to happen before the first of the year. So a lot of people around baseball think that the Astros' lack of a GM could be a problem. Crane doesn't think that at all. And to be honest, I agree with Crane. If we're talking about keeping things together, Crane maybe digs into his checkbook a little bit more with guys like Yuli Gurriel, who does sound like he wants. Yuli's been great here. We'll work on that. We need some coverage. Michael Brantley, he's more wait and see about. He also hinted that if something comes up with a big bat for the outfield that could play multiple positions out there, we have that slot available. Left-handed pitcher in the bullpen. So some things he's hinted at. I think I'm on the same page as Crane from this perspective in that it's not the end of the world that they don't have a general manager for 2023. It's not ideal, and there's definitely lots of questions you can ask about if it's fun to work for the Houston Astros. At the same time, I think for the next couple of months, I don't think the Astros are in a bind because they don't have a general manager. It's really about like next year, 2024, I'm talking about next year, 2025. That's where things are going to start to get dicey, especially if Jeff Bagwell and Reggie Jackson are the two like biggest voices that are talking to one Jim Crane. I'm Paul Gallant. It is the Paul Gallant Show, the most interactive sports talk show in Houston. 713-780-3776 to call in, to text in too. Bob leads off the Paul Gallant Show with a thought on Justin Verlander. Bob, do you think the Astros should keep Verlander even at a price of maybe 3 years, $130 million like Max Scherzer got?
Absolutely not. And as you guys have watched, Verlander is a tremendous asset during the regular season. Really, his performance in the postseason is what I focus on with Verlander. Speaking with my father, as we were watching this playoff run into the World Series this year, and I always question, where is the Verlander that we're used to seeing when you get into the postseason? This regular season Verlander somehow doesn't show up in the postseason.
Yeah,
that's what I'd like to comment on.
I appreciate the phone call, Bob. I'm with you. It's weird, the discrepancy between playoff Verlander and World Series Verlander in particular and regular season Verlander. But it is a thing, and it's something that we have seen before from guys like Clayton Kershaw, where they're great in the regular season, and then in the postseason, they just don't have it. You're paying a guy like that a lot of money to be your stopper and to help you out in the regular season. But the Astros, as I said a little earlier, do have the luxury of being in a division that stinks. And because of that, do you need Verlander to get exactly to the same point that you got last year, next year? I don't think you do. 713-780-3776 to call in, to text in too. You can tweet me at Gallant Says. Jason tweets, absolutely not at Verlander's age. He's 39. If that's the contract he wants, let him move on and spend that money on first base, Abreu, and a left fielder, DH type player. I am all about that. We have the pitching depth to absorb that loss easily.
You're listening to the Paul Gallant Show on ESPN 97.5 and 92.5. Live from the Veritex Community Bank Studios. Here's Paul Gallant.
The most interactive sports talk show in Houston. Question we let the show off with: would you give Justin Verlander a Max Scherzer level contract? 39 going on 40. We're talking about a 3-year, $130 million contract. Personally, I would not. He obviously would help you out in the regular season a lot, but do you need him to win the AL West with the depth of pitching you have? Only if you have injuries would I say 100%. Can't predict that. I think you roll the dice and use that money that you could save not signing Justin Verlander on a first baseman or outfield depth. Just anything else. Some comments on Twitch from E315. Verlander isn't duplicating the season he just had. He's about to win the Cy Young. I tend to agree. Holly Rachel worshiper. Do we sign Verlander to keep another country from getting a nuclear weapon? Well, one of those other countries could be the New York Yankees. I tend to think it's perhaps the New York Mets.